we're about to go into another New York Advanced Energy Stakeholders meeting. And I was really happy that you had time to sit for a few minutes and take a moment to step back and look at the landscape of New York City. You come at this with a variety of lenses that you can apply to the current situation from your background. Walk me through what you see as the key needs versus the distracting wants in the city of New York around energy, and what's the path to reconcile the two so we can have progress?
Thank you very much, HG, for having me here. I appreciate it, and you have a fantastic group, and it's extremely valuable to all the stakeholders. So I came from a utility perspective, thinking about very large infrastructure and the total cost to the consumer or the commercial building or to the end user about delivering that in a more distributed and cleaner way. That is the need and the want of the incumbent utilities. The need and the want of the commercial end users and the city itself in terms of price and in terms of percentage of clean energy actually coming into the system and in terms of the percentage of distributed energy that's on site and has more reliability and has more capability of hitting the peak. All of those things are sort of muddled together and mixed messages in the market from what I'm seeing right now. And part of that is related to this issue of the stakeholders coming from a very, very different engineering, political, and economic standpoint. This makes the language and the semantics of whether or not distributed generation offers these type of benefits to the system or not, whether or not things are more expensive or not, whether or not the data that the utility and the incumbent provider and the system operators have is sufficient to be able to deliver the value from distributed energy and really hit the reliability in the peak system. All of those things are different, and the language that is used is different, and the terminology is different, such that the needs and the wants that you hear from all these different stakeholders don't make sense to each other as parties. That is the, I think that's the friction point that we're seeing in New York. It's not about the technology or about the, as much about the politics. To me, right now in the market at large, in this beautiful city we're in, is much more about this kind of talking over each other a little bit about what they really want for the customer and the end user. That's what I'm seeing right now in the city. The Clean Energy Standard is all about a certain percentage of renewable energy system-wide, and a lot of it has to do with utility scale and large-scale power. There's this gap between the very large-scale, utility-scale way of achieving those goals, which from a bulk power and from the state's perspective could probably be done through large-scale procurement of clean energy at the bulk level and distributed throughout the system. This gap between what the Clean Energy Standard is asking for and how it's paid for and what the distributed energy and REV proceeding is asking for and how it's paid for. Those two things are not synergistic, and they're competing with each other in what I call sort of the thought leadership area. Whose path is the least cost path to achieving the larger state goals? And I think that that's probably where the rub is. So the city of New York, I think, is sort of stuck a little bit in the middle of this conversation, which is this need for high amounts of clean energy, non-carbon generation, being absorbed and put into the city or generated by the city at the least cost to everyone who is a taxpayer or a city resident. And they're stuck between this discussion about which one of these is actually true from an engineering and from a political and from an economic standpoint. Is it the bulk power procurement of the past, the way we designed and procured the system, or is it this other vision that Audrey and Richard and many, many others of us share, which is this ability to harness technology to get more of the distributed energy on site for reliability and also from customer choice standpoint? And for me, where that locus of control and the ability to actually solve this issue between bulk and distributed and what's actually best and least cost for the consumer is the New York ISO. If we can't come to an agreement about what that least cost path is, then I think we're going to continue to get stuck, and we won't make the kind of progress as fast as the governor or the city or any of the other stakeholders want. And for the city, I think the key is the independent system operator and being able to get real facts on the ground about how to procure the most amount of distributed energy at scale in the least cost way and deliver it to the ISO. That's sort of the path, but it's not easy, right? That's why why we have groups like yours to be able to kind of try to solve these complicated problems, but still get projects on the ground. If we're going to see significant progress, I think, in this world that we're trying to create, I think we're going to need to see more of the types of projects that Con Edison is trying to do in the BQDM project. The methodology of procuring energy that way is as important, in my mind, as the actual technologies that are going to be delivering those benefits to the city.